Hi all, happy Thursday. So I missed you all, so I'm here on the webcam. You can see me as well as what we're going to be doing today. So here we are on the haiku page, just going to run through what we're going to do today, and then you can go ahead and get started. So of course the first thing is number one, we're going to watch this lecture video. And then we're going to talk about the carnival game, and I'm going to explain that to you. And then over the break, your assignment for this week, your homework is to create your game and to fill out the worksheets about it. And you're actually going to create the game for your family. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get together as a class, but you will get to create your game with your family. And then I'm going to encourage you to try and find a way to, FaceTime somebody or, use your computers to try and go to somebody else's game and try and figure out how they played their game as well. So that's your assignment for over the break. So let's get started. This week's lesson is called Disjunctive Syllogisms. But before we hop into that, I wanted to just give you guys some ideas of what I mean by these games. And I really like these disjunctive and hypothetical syllogisms because I think they're fun. I love playing games. And so that's why I wanted to do this Logic Carnival, to kind of bring it to life and make it more than just, regular learning. So I'm going to start by just making my screen a little bit bigger, and I'm going to play a few games with you guys, okay? So I think you can still see me here. Let me just close this out a little bit. But so basically, the first thing I want to do is just talk about a conditional syllogism game. So this is what we did last week. And basically, here's my, really fancy whiteboard. The basic conditional one that we talked about last week is like an if P, then Q, okay? And those statements we talked about, if you wake up late, then you're going to be, late for school. So we agreed that we all agree that if P happens, then Q should happen. And we talked about moods. So moods, there's 4 possibilities. So the first thing is, so mood number 1 is yes, P happens. So in that case, sorry, I've got to figure out where my webcam is. So mood number 1, I'll write a number 1. P happens. Okay, so if we oversleep, then yes, we'll be late. And we would say that that one is valid. We all agree that that's what it means. If P happens, then Q will happen. Therefore, Q. The second possible mood, well, I'm writing upside down. This is super fancy for me. Mood number 2, we could say that P doesn't happen. So not P. You did not oversleep. Sorry, I'm trying to get light there. So not P. Can we say anything about whether you got to school late or not? No, if not P happened, then, you could have gotten a car accident and gotten there late, but we can't tell whether or not, or you could have just gotten there on time. Because we can't tell, we would say invalid. You can't really come to a conclusion about whether Q happened or not. Okay, so that one would be invalid. Let me see if I can figure this out. Okay, so mood 1, if P then Q. If P happens, then we all have to agree that Q has to happen. Mood 2, P did not happen. We can't say anything about whether Q happened. Okay, so mood 3. Which one do you want to do? So we've got P, we've got not P. So we could do Q. So basically, if P then Q. So P, we have to decide. So in this case, our example is if you overslept, then you'll be late. So this time we're saying Q happened, you were late. Do you know whether you overslept or not? We can't really tell because you could have been late for other reasons, or you could have been late because you overslept. So we don't know. It could have been P, but it could have been not P. And then our final one, mood 4. So we've got P, not P, Q. So our last one is not Q. So if you are not late, then you must not have overslept. If we agree that the first one, that if you were late, then you definitely, or if you overslept, then you're definitely late. You're not late, so this is our other valid one. So for last week's, when we were doing conditional, we had 2 valid forms. And the two valid forms were this one, P, and not Q. Okay, so those are the ones you have to remember. Okay, P gives us a valid conclusion, and if not Q, if you weren't late, then you knew you didn't oversleep. Okay, so that is for conditionals. What were the valid ones? Today we're going to be looking at, and so I just wanted to do a few little games with you to kind of get you an idea of how these will work like in a game. So how many of you are familiar with like the state quarter collection? So our kids used to collect these, like the state quarters. You've got the one for each state: Michigan, Virginia, Delaware, New York. And we know that those are they just come on the quarters. So I'm just going to play a little game with you right now. I've got some coins in my hand. It's a variety of coins. But my syllogism is an if P then Q. And I'm going to say if it's a state coin, it's my if P, then it's a quarter. So here we go. Let's see. Sorry, I gotta work on my angles better. Okay. So my if P then Q statement is if it's a state coin, then it's a quarter. And so we know that like they don't have state coins for pennies and nickels. So can we all agree that this is true? If it's a state coin, then it's a quarter. So I'm going to go into my hand. And you guys won't get to see what coin I pick. So I've got pennies, nickels, quarters, some state quarters, some. We know that there's also quarters that aren't state quarters. So I'll mix a few of those in. Okay. So my first one is I pick a coin, and I'm going to look at it, but you don't know. So here's our syllogism. If it's a state coin, then it's a quarter. And I'm going to tell you that it is not a state coin. Okay? So that would be, if P, it's not a state coin, and P means it is a state coin, so this is not P. So can you tell me, my mood is not P. So I'm just going to write that on the back real quick here. Let's grab tissue. So my premise is if P then Q. My minor premise is it's not P. Okay, can you tell me, sorry, my thumb erased it. So not P, can you tell me whether that's valid or not? Can you tell me whether Q happens, whether it's a state coin, whether it's a quarter or whether it's not a quarter? What do you think? I'll give you 2 seconds. 1, 2. So if you said invalid, you can't tell just because I said it's not a state coin. Like I said, there's some quarters that are not a state coin, and this is what this one is. So it's a regular quarter. See on the back is just, the eagle. So it's a quarter, but you couldn't tell whether or not it was. So we would say, because it was not P, it was not a state coin, therefore that would be an invalid. You couldn't tell for sure whether it was a quarter or not. Because, I could say that again, not P, it's not a state coin, but this time when I show you, it was a penny. So let me see where my webcam is there. Oh, penny. So again, not P, and you couldn't tell whether it was a non-state coin quarter or whether it was a penny. So that one we can't come to a valid conclusion about whether it's a quarter or not. So we would say, if I just say that it's not a state coin, you couldn't tell me whether it's a Q is true or not. So now let's try another one. So I'm going to shake up my coins. So we've done not P. If it's a state coin, then it's a quarter. This time, the coin that I picked, so here's our original one. If it's a state coin, then it's a quarter. This time, the one in my hand is a state coin. So let's go to this one. Our new one is, yes, P. P happened. Now, can you tell me whether it's a quarter or not? So it is a state coin. Can you tell me whether it's a quarter or not? And you should all be able to say that, yes, if it's a state coin, then it has to be a quarter, because that was part of that means valid. And the conclusion is, therefore, Sorry, upside down writing again. Therefore, Q happens. And look, it is Ohio. Woo. Can you see going off to Neil Armstrong on the moon? So this one was a quarter, and it was a state coin, Ohio. So that one, we knew that it had to be a quarter because I said that it was a state coin. So we've done not P, we've done P. What's another one? So this time, Q happened. So it is a quarter. I'm going to pick a quarter. Okay. Can you tell me whether P happens or not? So I've got a quarter in my hand, but can you tell me whether it's a state coin or not? And we would have to say the conclusion is invalid. You don't know, because we know that there are state coin quarters, but we also know that there's quarters that are not state coins. So you can't really tell me whether it's a state coin. In this case, I got the old style eagle on the back. Not a state coin. So this one you couldn't tell, but I could have grabbed that Ohio one again. Either way, they're quarters, but you can't tell me whether it's a state coin or not. This is the Ohio one. Okay. And our final one, so we've got two invalids, and so you're probably going to guess our final ones. We've got not P and P, Q, and our final one would be not Q. Not Q, which means it's not a quarter. And therefore, can you tell me anything about whether it's a state coin? As we know that only the quarters made state coins, so we could say this is valid. If it's not a quarter, then our conclusion would be therefore, sorry, I'm just going to write the right way. So if it's not a quarter, then it's therefore not P. It's not a state coin. Okay, so this is from last week, the if-then statements, and we see we've got two valids. If we say that it is P, that's a valid statement. If we say it's not a quarter, we could also come to a valid conclusion that if it's not a quarter, then it's not a state coin. If it was a state coin, then it was a quarter. Those are the two valid ones. The other two we don't know. Okay? So that's last week. This week we're talking about disjunctives. And so let me just show you a little, and we're going to kind of go along with the homework or with the haiku page. I just put a few notes on here that you can come back to, but I'm just going to explain them with you. So last week was conditional, this week is disjunctive syllogisms. And these are either P or Q. And I just want to tell you that these are a little different than the way we use them just in regular English when we're talking with people. So example, if your mom told your little brother, okay, you either have to eat peas or carrots with dinner. Basically what we're saying is you have to choose a vegetable. It's either going to be peas or carrots. But the one thing I want you to remember is that it could be both. Your little brother could say, I want both. And that is also valid. Or that's also a possibility. So I'm just going to start with my own little syllogism I made up. And it said, my statement is, all my friends are either, and then a disjunctive says P or Q. In this case, all my friends, you can just see the notes here with me, are either smart or funny. So basically what this is saying is if my friend is not smart, we can all come to the conclusion that because they're my friend, and I said all my friends are smart or funny, that if they're not smart, then they must be funny. So I kind of highlighted that. This is how we would write out the first mood. Either, so our major premise is all my friends are either P or Q, smart or funny. That first one is my friend is not smart, so not P. P did not happen. But we can come to the valid conclusion, since I said all of them have to be at least one or the other. If they're not one, then they have to be the other. Therefore, we can say, yes, she must be funny. Okay, so that was our first mood. Now I want you to try the second mood. See if you can solve it for me. So we're going to leave that same syllogism. The major premise is the same. All my friends are either smart or funny. This time I said, my friend is smart. Can you tell me, just from knowing that, whether she's funny or not? We said it's possible they could be smart and funny, or it's possible they could just be smart and not funny. And because you can't tell whether Q happened or not, we would say that that mood is invalid. You just can't tell. Now try the third one. Okay, so the major premise is the same. All my friends are either smart or funny. This time I said, yes, my friend is funny. So I want you to think on your own for a second. Tell me whether you think thumbs up. You can tell me about